Mac, what is it that makes computers so very useful to us? Is it that they're cleverer than we are?
No, they're quite stupid in many ways, but in certain ways they are very clever. They can handle a vast amount of information, and they can handle it very rapidly. And what's more, they can keep on doing it without making any mistakes, night after night after day after night and so on, which we can't obviously do.
Right. Well, I can understand that being applied to sending a man to the moon or running the Pentagon or something, colossal, endless computations. But for an ordinary person who just maybe wants to run a small business or something, it's very confusing. We read ads in the paper. You could spend anything from £50 to £5,000 on a computer. But what use could I get from it?
Well, of course, many of these are set up to show games. This one here, for example, and you can play silly games on them. There's a very important educational element of learning how to program these computers. First of all, it's fun, and people enjoy it. And secondly, it's very creative. You can do very interesting and exciting things. It's boundless, the sort of things that you can actually use your creative imagination to do. And thirdly, it might turn out to be useful for your business. And there's no business that I can imagine that at some time or other won't find the use for a computer.
Right. Now, supposing I wanted to use a computer for my business. I'm a freelance journalist. I mean, let's take my example as maybe a typical one. What gear do I need? Because there's a terrifically wide range of choice.
Well, of course, you need the computer with a keyboard,
yes.
Something like this. You need a video screen. You need a straightforward cassette recorder to store your programs on as much as anything.
Right.
Obviously, you need a printer here for printing out your letters. And if this was a bit slow, the cassette recorder is a bit slow, you can buy yourself a disc unit, which is a lot faster, and that stores it on a disc instead of on the ordinary magnetic cassette. And that's the equipment you need.
Right. Well, business, as Max said, and particularly small business, is the fastest growing area to which personal or microcomputers are being applied. Now, our reporter, Jill Neville, has been finding out just how small some of those businesses are.
Buying sweets or chocolates always requires serious study. There's so many different sorts to choose from.
Those are 10. Those are 10. Or you've got something there at 6p.
Because there are so many varieties on the shelves, the shopkeeper must do an awful lot of bookkeeping, both to check the stores and to keep up the orders to all the suppliers. In addition, Phyllis Arundel wanted to know more frequently than her accountant could tell her precise financial position. She'd seen microcomputers advertised and decided that she too must have one.
But not all sweet shop owners have a computer. Once you actually had the computer here and you had that keyboard and the blank screen facing you, weren't you rather apprehensive?
No.
You knew what to do already, did you?
Well, I mean, it looked like a typewriter, didn't it? And I could operate a typewriter, and I was fascinated by the little bits that came up on the screen in front of me, and having a printer and able to press another button, and it came out on the printer at the side. It was great fun.
Now, has it actually helped you in your business, do you think?
Well, it hasn't financially helped. It hasn't brought in more custom, which is what I would need. But what it has done, it's given me a lot more time. I mean, the jobs that took ages, you know, but manually, now it's done in seconds.
To keep up to date with her 40 sweet suppliers, VAT and the bank used to take Phyllis Arundel several hours bookwork every night. And that's the last thing you need after 10 hours on your feet. Now, at the end of each day, it's simply a matter of checking the day's takings and entering them and the invoices into the computer. Once a week, she also enters details of any transactions with the bank, and the computer will then give her an up-to-date statement of her current financial position.
Right, shall I do next? This first.
Because she'd found it so useful, Phyllis thought that a computer might help other people with small businesses. So, a year ago, she started up a computer service to take over their paperwork, allowing them to get on with their jobs.
Do you think, the computer side of your business ever taking over from the chocolates?
I hope so. Yes, it'd be great fun, because at the present time, the chocolate, this business is sort of going down because we've got a new bypass and it's affected trade. And in any case, I find that more exciting. I find the computer business much more exciting.
Well, I reckon if Phyllis can get to grips with a microcomputer, then I jolly well ought to be able to. But, Mac, have I got to be able to program a microcomputer in order to get some value from it?
Not necessarily. You can buy a magazine, for example, and get program listings. I love this one with the bug-eyed monster and the lights coming out of its eyes. And in here, they publish all manner of different sorts of programs, and they list them out for you.
And you have, what do? You type all that into the computer?
You type it all in without one mistake, and one mistake will ensure that it will never work.
Right, well, that's pretty laborious business, isn't it?
Well, you can buy it, of course, on a cassette.
Yeah.
Just an ordinary household cassette like this.
That's just a perfectly ordinary domestic cassette, and
Yes.
presumably that's the same in principle as the proper big computer has, like James Bond films, has big tapes rolling backwards and forwards. It's the same sort of thing.
That's exactly the same. Well, in principle, it's the same. That's running about 250 times the speed of that, and they can run up to 8,000 times the speed of that. Things in computers don't happen 10 times or twice as fast. It's always 100 times or 1,000 times as fast.
But for our purposes, this is perfectly good.
We have a program in there, and we can put it into the machine.
Well, let's do it. Right, so far so good. There's a perfectly ordinary domestic cassette recorder.
Exactly.
OK, connected to this. Now, what happens next?
Well, we have to load the program into the machine. So you type, load.
LOAD.
Now, we've got to give it the name of the program. So in this particular machine, we have to use quotation marks to give it the name. So quotation marks, and the name of the game is Wall. It's the old Wall game.
Right.
Now, we must switch on the cassette
Yes.
and then hit return. And that puts the control back to the computer. And now it's beginning to
Searching.
search.
Right. Now, presumably, as you said, this is a fairly slow and laborious way of doing it, and we could speed things up by using one of the floppy disks you were talking about earlier.
Yes, on a floppy, this is about 130 times the speed of that. And, of course, it costs correspondingly more.
So this takes minutes and that takes seconds?
Yeah, it'll take half a minute, so that would take being in flash. No time at all.
Right. Now,
But
how do
we're
we know
ready.
it's finished?
Well, we've got the symbol back here, and that shows the computer's waiting for you to do your next thing.
So that's in there.
That's it. So we can switch
stop
it
that.
off.
And presumably we can check, can we, that what was on there is in there now?
Happily, yes. All you have to do is to type out list and it'll tell you what's in it.
List, L-I-S-T.
L-I-S-T. Return. As you.
Wow. OK, that's
And
the
that is
program that was.
exactly what it's read in from that cassette.
Right. Right. OK, well, we know it's in there. How do we play the game?
Just tell it to run.
Run. Nice, simple English words, I must say. And return, I suppose.
That's it. And you should be in the game. It worked.
Right. War game. Move the bat. Left with the Z key, right with the X key. Try to knock all the bricks out with the ball. Bricks to the further back score more points. You're allowed 3 balls. Large or small bat. Well, I have an L bat. As a beginner. Press any key to serve. Right. Nice multicoloured game, that. I see. Yes, right. I think I get the picture.
I hope you're better at tennis than you are at this.
It's so simple to play. OK, well, obviously it's not just for playing games. They're terrific fun, but there must be more to it than that.
I really hate to see computers just used for playing games. To my mind, it's kind of degrading when they could be used for much more serious purposes. And, of course, there are millions of uses for them, many of which we're going to look at in this series. For example, you can actually use this to communicate with much larger scale computers through telephone networks. You can use it to communicate with other people who own micros, and you could use it to communicate with databases.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to show you right now.
All right.
And we're going to access a database, and we do this by typing star Prestel. So it's star Prestel. Prestel. We're now dialing Prestel automatically through the ordinary telephone lines, and we can access enormous databases, everything from the current share price to weather forecasts and so on.
And key something or other to continue.
That's the old hash up there, which is a shift and a hash.
old hash. Isn't it? Wonderful.
What would you like to do?
Well, we thought about this before the programme started, and I've decided I want to fly to Paris.
One ticket. Oh, what a shame. Well, there we go, travel. And number 2.
OK.
2. And Prestel.
Prestel. I've never heard of that airline, but I'll take a chance.
Oh, we don't want to
Sound
book a real
friendly.
ticket on one of the others.
I see. Now, we're going to Paris, so presumably I Put 1 in there, and if
One
that's
from
where the
the
little
hash.
flashing thing is, that's where it's going to come. All right, 1
And a hash.
and a hash. Economy, 1 hash. Getting the hang of this. Date of travel, the 11th of January.
That's 11:01.
Just like that.
Yep, that's it.